Hex just made a video about the state of Honkai Star Rail for beginner players, and I just disagree with it, and I just want to say what I think about it. I don't disagree with the whole video, and I would have much rather just done a reaction to the video, but I kind of got spoiled by other content creators, so here we are. And I'm gonna just like cut it up into pieces so you know what I'm talking about. I'll tell you when it's my raw reaction because I have not watched the whole thing, but yeah, I watched like the first half. Subscribe.
My name is Hex Juice, and I am here to talk to you about the absolutely abysmal state of the new player experience in Honkai Star Rail. As a newer player myself, I have discovered how difficult it can be to get into the game.
I don't want to jump the gun with this, but I'm also kind of a new player, and I just don't align with this idea. I do think it totally depends on what you're looking for in the game, but you shouldn't expect to clear out the content extremely quickly. I think the new player experience is really good, especially if you're trying to get through all the story content. They give you a bunch of stellar jades. They also have it at a pace where they are improving your account while you're doing the story. They give you bosses that are a little bit better than your characters, so you improve your characters a little bit more. I think the only problem is that they don't tell you that you should be doing your traces in your levels instead of relics, but of course they're not going to tell you that because they want you to spend money on the game.
I have seen a lot of the pitfalls that people fall into at the advice of guide makers. Building Dr. Ratio is a complete scam.
I do not think building Dr. Ratio is a scam, but I think you need to recognize what characters you have in your account and how you've already built your account to see how Dr. Ratio would fit in there. And if he doesn't fit well, then he won't be a good use for your account. Himeko and Blade are my DPS, like I don't need another DPS. That's why I don't use him.
Been really enjoying the game since I got Acheron and stopped using Dr. Ratio.
I don't know, this just doesn't sit well with me. I think there was a deeper problem with your account and who you decided to build rather than the character itself being a problem. I did play Dr. Ratio though, and I will admit he's a bit clunky for players who don't know how to use him, and I was one of those players, so I stopped using him. I think if you're disappointed with how a character works on your account, it's totally valid to just stop using them and use another character. There's plenty of 4 stars that'll work, and there's plenty of 5 stars that'll work too. I feel like in gacha games there's also this mindset where 5 star equals good and 4 star equals less good, but honestly, like 4 star characters can work better on your account than some 5 stars can.
Complete scam unit.
He's free.
The new player experience in Honkai Star Rail is very poor.
I'm gonna be completely honest, there was so many pitfalls of the story at the beginning and the middle, which is, I'd say the beginning is Belobog, and then the middle is the Xianzhou. There's just side quests in Belobog that I just genuinely just don't want to play, especially the Luca quest. I skipped through the entire thing, and then the Xianzhou, like, a lot of it was just boring shit. I totally forgot the main quest of the Xianzhou, I'm gonna be 100% honest. And I'm, like, super surprised about that because I played that recently. Like, I quit the game at the beginning, like, when the game released, and I came back to the game and I played the Xianzhou, and I just can't believe that I've forgotten it. And then that one side quest about that pilot furry, bro, I skipped the whole thing. So if there's any pitfalls that's going on for beginner players, I definitely say it's the story.
A lot of y'all forget that people have not all played since day one. In fact, a lot of people who would keep the game alive and refreshing the community would be people who have not played.
I agree with this 100%. The game needs new players, and the content creators aren't really helping with that.
All the time, I get comments, I get chat messages. Well, why don't you have this? It's been there since day one. Why don't you have that? It's been there since day one.
I think that's just because you're a streamer. Most normal players don't have somebody talking in their ears, so they're able to play the game at a more normal pace and be happy with what they do. Just like how somebody's playing Genshin Impact use all their saved resin, and they don't have a problem with it until somebody says that what they did was bad.
And people, like, actually, I think actively forget that there are people who could play Honkai Star Rail who have not played since it released.
100% agree. A lot of content creators are forgetting about beginner players, but I do not think the game itself is forgetting about beginner players.
The difference with Honkai Star Rail and Genshin are many, but one of the biggest ones is that Honkai Star Rail is significantly more complicated.
I do think Honkai Star Rail is more complicated than Genshin Impact, but I do not think it is difficult. You know? These are gacha games. If the level of entry is not easy, then the gacha game will not run well.
Back in my day...
Pause. Pause, you're not an oldie, you're not an oldie.
I had a relatively well-built Hu Tao. I had a shittily built Xingqiu, and I could explode basically anything.
One complaint that I heard from a lot of Genshin Impact people...
I should be the only motherfucker getting praise in the Genshin community.
When they started playing Honkai Star Rail is that the numbers weren't big enough. That they wanted big numbers. And let me just tell you that you don't need big numbers to clear the content in this game. I'm pretty sure word for word what they said was that Genshin players like to see big numbers, so they should increase the damage and increase the health of the enemies, but it's also like Man, y'all are just that addicted to big numbers. And I'm not saying that about Hachu, so I just remembered this. But Genshin people are kind of brain dead, so I'm not surprised.
In Honkai Star Rail, you kind of have to have really good artifacts, and you have to farm relics a lot more seriously.
If you want to clear MOC, then that definitely makes sense. But when you're using the term beginner player, I don't think that is exactly, I don't know, appropriate. In my opinion, when you're a beginner, you don't need to clear MOC, and you don't need to clear Stimulated Universe. And I also think that Golden Gears is very easy as a beginner. Of course, you have to clear the level 1s of Stimulated Universe, which I think is really easy, but the rest, not until later. I mean, even then, you don't even need to do it because, I don't know, you just don't need to. You're a beginner, and the level of entry, at least for now, is very easy. You don't need to do that much damage. That's also why your equilibrium level changes, is because the game knows when you need to upgrade and when you don't need to upgrade. So for the time being, you can upgrade your traces and add somebody who has level 80 characters and just have them literally hyper carry you.
And the problem that I want to bring up about this is that God, relics are worse in this game. Because of the reality that there are so many more stats that can be on relics.
That are good. They're not always going to be like super bad. There's a lot of more stats that are mid, but they're not make it or break it for your character. Let's not forget about self-modeling resin, where you can literally pick the main stat. I think the main stat is the most important thing. So
the other thing is that because relics have a much higher level of importance in Honkai Star Rail, it means that the new player experience is naturally a bit more unpleasant.
I do think that artifacts are very important for the game and more important than Genshin Impacts, but again, I think that if you build your traces and just like throw on random artifacts, you'll be fine. Hoyoverse essentially has this game model where they desensitize their entire fans into thinking that the game is difficult when it's literally just so fucking easy. Especially for beginners, because they're getting power creep characters, like incredibly power creep characters. Old players aren't getting that shit, but the new players, y'all are able to get Acheron, y'all are able to get Sparkle, y'all are able to get Ron May, but like, because of that, y'all are able to clear the content way faster. And that includes 4 stars. I'm looking at you, Lynx and Gallagher.
You have to have relics to do good damage. You cannot really farm relics until at least level 60.
I don't know about this. I mean, you can use relics to get better damage, but you don't need relics to do damage that can help you clear the content. Eventually you will, and you will get to that point, but again, throwing on random relics will work, or just the relic sets that are recommended for the characters with shit stats, those work too. Also, what insane damage do you need to do below level 60? Like, dude, believe it or not, the way the XP works is like way easier to get to level 70 than you think, so yeah. You're not having to get to AR 56 and then it's like 100,000 freaking XP to get to the next one. To preface, I'm level 62, but I got there in like 2 months and I'm a casual player. I'm not expecting insane improvement, you know?
You can't farm relics at max efficiently until level 65, and that takes months.
I think this is wrong. When the game first released, everybody got to like level 50, around 55, 50, and then after that everything just kept getting easier with all of the game modes and then all of the quests you can do. So if you clear all that, I genuinely think you could do it in like, I don't know, a few weeks. Like for real. I mean, I play super casually and I went from equilibrium level 2 to equilibrium level 5 in like, I don't know, a few weeks to like a month. Thing was, I switched my equilibrium level too soon, so I had to be Aventurine, and beating Aventurine was like mad difficult, but eventually I got a good team. Before the nerf, I beat that nigga before the nerf. So yeah, you can even beat the story content like unnerfed Aventurine's boss as a beginner.
And so what that leaves is players who are unable to get damage, especially out of certain characters that really need high relic quality, for months.
Then don't use those characters that don't work for your account. Like, I literally had my main DPS as Dan Hung and then my support as well for, I don't know, most of the game. And they both had 4-star relics.
So many players have been playing since day one, and because most people who make guides or make recommendations to players, A, both have played since day one, and B, sort of do have the assumption that everybody else has played since day one.
100% agree.
It means that the advice that you are given, it's not particularly usable.
I mean, it is if you're looking up the character that you want to build. It is very useful.
One of the biggest things that I was told was to build Doctor Ratio.
I don't know, don't build characters that you don't want to build. I think if you really wanted to build Dr. Ratio, you wouldn't have a problem with building Dr. Ratio, but obviously that's not the case. I think you just want to clear content, and I just think Dr. Ratio wasn't right for your account. I'm gonna be 100% honest, I think this is a higher level problem. I don't think this is a lower level problem. Or just exclusively a streamer problem, because it should take months to clear content, not just weeks.
In most ways, that makes a lot of sense. Dr. Ratio is a free 5-star. The problem as a new player with Dr. Ratio is multifaceted. So he needs other characters to be good. He needs really good relics to be good. And it takes a very, 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 very long time for players to get to the point where they can actually farm relics that are good enough for him. And it sucks.
Dr. Ratio does need other characters to do well and work with, but I don't think guide makers are hiding the fact that you need Pella to do well with him. He still does his job though for beginners. I really don't think that he's horrible for beginners. He still does damage that can clear content.
It sucks for new players because you are telling them to build a character that is not going to be worth it until very late game.
I agree, he's not amazing until late game, and you won't be able to clear MOC 12 using Dr. Ratio as a beginner, but you know, he still does okay.
My account is level 64.
Okay, that's a higher level than me. But yeah, I do think this is a problem where your chat is telling you that you fucking suck, and then you think you fucking suck. So, also this expectation that you think you're gonna clear all the content in a few months is just, like, unlikely. Even though you can do it, it is very unlikely that somebody's willing to take 12 hours every day playing Honkai Star Rail just to get to that level, but you know you can. It's still possible.
Not even 65. I have farmed relics approximately 4 times ever.
Oh. Well, that explains it. I do think you should get relics, at least 4-star relics, to put on your characters. If you don't have any relics, then I don't know what you're doing. What's the stigma about getting relics early? Sometimes it's good. I would just say don't use your saved resin on it, you know? You got plenty of time to improve and do better. You don't need to do everything in like 5 seconds. You get burnt out real quick, and that's why people don't clear the content in a few weeks, even though you technically can do it. You know what I'm saying?
My Akron has horrendous stats. They are buffed right now because of Sparkle and some of my blessings. Realistically speaking, my Akron is not well built. And Akron does very decent damage and has completely transformed my account. I have been able to clear content that I could not do before.
That's because Acheron is an insane power creep unit made specifically for beginner players like yourself. And you know who didn't have that? The older players just still had to clear the content with Jing Yuan. My point is just that people who've been playing for longer had to pull for relics, and if they didn't, then they would lose. Like any game like this. But now that you get like powerful creep units like Acheron, you're able to clear much easier. That includes Inhibitor Lune, Sparkle, Ron May, all these supports. They can make even other characters, other smaller teams even better.
You do have to invest in every character, but the level of investment is different. And if you don't actually understand that and you're typing in your fingers like, well, every character needs investment. Yeah, no shit. But the reality is that some need a lot of investment.
Facts, and I do think Dr. Ratio is one of those characters, but I also do think that Dr. Ratio doesn't need insane damage as a beginner. Like, if you're a beginner or low equilibrium and you use Dr. Ratio, you don't need to have Dr. Ratio do 1 billion trillion damage. Eventually, when you realize that he's not doing enough for you, you'll get rid of him, just like you did, Hexjuice.
I hate him with the passion of and fury of 1,000 suns, and he does no damage.
Again, I don't get the trend of building characters that you don't like. I just don't see why you would do that. I love Himeko, I love her design, I love everything about her. That's why I build her, and that's why I still have fun, even though she kind of sucks, you know? And I do know some people build for meta, but again, like, if you're building for meta, I would, like, try to figure out if the character is good for your account specifically. And if not, then don't do it, because all the information is there. But I also do understand if you don't want to look for the information, just want to go to a guide maker. And if the guide makers are giving this information, which I know they did, it's still messed up because a lot of the information is wrong. 100% agree with that. And I lost a lot of, like, my trust with a lot of content creators and guide makers like freaking Braxophone, because all of them was saying that, oh, Acheron's going to need her light cone, blah, 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 just to get you to pay more. or to pay more money to get her light cone. Like, that shit was fucked up, and I did not like that at all.
It would be nice if the recommendations we made kept in mind an actual regular player's experience. The reality is the vast majority of Twitch viewers have very high level of investment into the game, into the community. A lot of you guys watch a ton of Honkai Star Rail content creators. It's easy to lose track of the primary player base when the majority of the people that speak in your stream, the majority of other content creators are incredibly sweaty about this game.
I mean, to be honest, it's not like we couldn't tell from your opinion that you're around a lot of sweats. But I think that a lot of casual players, they play at their own pace. They don't try to speed through the game like a lot of content creators do, because content creators get the worst part of it. They get a lot of backseating from the community that, oh, you should be doing this, you should have this, you should have this, you should have this. But no, like, normal people, they have their own pace, they have their own thing that they're doing. They don't have to worry about somebody telling them what to do, you know? And a lot of people who casually play the game, they don't even look at content creators. They don't even look at guide makers on YouTube. They just look it up. Hey, what does Pela need? And they see the first artifact set and they're like, okay, yo, let's go. And they throw that set on them. Like, it's really not that serious.
It means that there are people who are left out, and it is going to prevent this game from growing. It is a problem that this community in the guides and like basically everything about this game is relatively unwelcoming to new players.
I'm gonna be 100%, that's an opinion. That is not fact. Trying to bring up content creators as if they're part of the development of the game, like, fuck no, they're not. I actually do think the game is pretty welcoming because they always have a new unit that is power creeping all of the rest by 1,000% right in the ready for a new player, with more than, 200, 300 pulls that they could get simply from the story quests. The story is interesting and amazing too. I think the story is very welcoming. It starts very basic and then it slowly gets more confusing, or not even confusing, just more complicated, and it's like at a pace where it's understandable. Sometimes it's too slow, I will admit, but you know what I mean. The story quests help you build your characters and encourage you to build your characters slowly by slowly.
There's a high barrier to entry on a lot of levels. The best thing about the community is that it has incredible content creators. I think that Hoyo Games, especially Honkai Star Rail, have some of the best, most interesting, hardworking content creators of like any game. And so that brings people in. Tectone is a good entertainer. Mr. Pokey is a good entertainer. Sevi makes great guides. Braxophone is very sweet, makes good guides. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of really, really, really fucking good Honkai Star Rail content creators, but it is so hard to get into the game when so much is assumed.
Heck is 100% right here. Like, what the hell is vertical scaling?
70 and have been farming relics like every day for a billion years.
Honestly, I think having fun is the most important thing. I don't think you should play for any other reason than fun, because if you're not having fun, the game is just not for you. Like, period. I feel like beginner players can have fun if they don't think about what they need or what they don't need. I think that beginner players can have fun if they're just like able to play Dr. Ratio without having people tell them that, oh, you need these artifacts before you can play Dr. Ratio. Like, no, you really don't. The game is way too easy to say stuff like that. I think both sides are wrong in a way.
You know what I mean? That's not very encouraging. So that's the point. Goodbye, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what character you think new players should build. What is the most valuable character? A lot of people were saying Serval, which I mean, I guess at the very beginning, yes. But in terms of investment long term, maybe not Serval. I'd like to know.
There you have it. I'll also say my final thoughts to this. I think Hexy's video was very good, and I do think that she faced these problems in the game, just like a lot of people have their own personal experiences. I also thought that Dr. Ratio was not right for my account. Like, I played him, and his damage was good from at the beginning, but slowly, as I started building other characters, I felt like I didn't like him enough, I didn't know him enough to even like bother building him, so I didn't, and he didn't become one of the main DPS in my team. And instead I built Blade, and I'm still using Blade, and then I built Himeko because I got Himeko. She's really beautiful. I love Himeko. I started building her, and I'm having fun with the game, and I like really love this game. Right now I have like 18k saved for Sunday and Robin. Like, we're on the way. Free to play, built Natasha and Lynx. I don't care how much people say that Natasha sucks. She is built, and she will stay built on my account. Built Lynx for Blade. Lynx is working great with Blade. I beat the aventurine boss with Lynx, Blade, Pella, and March, believe it or not. Unnerfed, the buffed version. I beat him on that, so I recommend that. And I think that your team just like solely depends on what the boss is like or what the character is like, what your enemy's like. I think you should consider that. You get so many resources to build your characters, I don't think you shouldn't use it. And as for right now, I only have one limited character, and that's Blade, and I'm happy that I only have Blade because I don't give a fuck, I got Himeko. This meta mindset has kind of like brain rot a lot of people because most of the casual players do not give a fuck about meta, and all they do is just play for fun, and it's a clear content, and it's so easy to clear content. It is so fucking easy to clear content that it's insane. And not everybody wants to do Swarm Disaster. I think Swarm Disaster is the most annoying fucking game mode in the entire game, and I would much rather play Golden Gears and Stimulated Universe. I love those two, but I hate Swarm Disaster, so I'm not gonna play that shit, you know? And Golden Gears and Simulated Universe, I may have a little bit of an advantage. I had a friend walk me through Simulated Universe like twice and Golden Gears once, and I got it like very quickly at what I need from my characters and what specifically I should do, how to play specifically. Like, oh, Tingyun, you shouldn't use your like a burst on a character who already has their burst, that type shit. Like, you get through it eventually, like through time. Yeah, I look up all my relics, so that's also that. Don't really watch guide makers, never have. I watched a few Braxophone videos on the courtesy of other streamers, but I ended up not liking Braxophone because I got introduced to his Acheron recommendation thing, and it's just like, man, you don't need her Lyco, dude. Neither do you need Sparkle. Anyways, I do think this is a situation where people who play games like Genshin Impact, who are given no content from the developers, now switch to Honkai Star Rail and are like, wait, I have to clear all the content. When in Genshin Impact, it was so much easier to clear the content because there was no content, right? And they give you so many stellar jades that you really don't need to do everything that you think you need to do. A lot of it is just side options, and you don't need to take those options. Like, you don't need to do Swarm Disaster if you don't want to. You don't need to do Golden Gears if you don't want to. Get a higher level player to help you out if you're confused, but honestly, when you get to know like what you need to read, what you need to know, then it gets a lot more fun. And I know a lot of people don't like to read, then don't play the mode. Like, you don't need to. There's so many other ways to get stellar jades, because I think that's the only benefit to get out of it, in my opinion. Unless you just want to test the limits of your characters, test your skill and your knowledge of the game. Of course, that is definitely what Golden Gears is for. But yeah, I just think it's a situation where there's just so much content that everybody thinks that they need to clear all of it when you don't. And I took a lot of parts out of HexJuice's video. I really cut this up a lot because I agreed with a lot of what HexJuice said. So yeah. Anyways, thank you for watching. Again, a very good video by HexJuice. I hope she sees this. I really love her content. So, yeah, kind of a fan. Anyway, thank you.